Okay, my name is Choden and I'm leading a retreat on the 4th of May on compassion. So I thought I'd say a few words on the background or the stages leading up to the practice of compassion. And I think the first really important thing is to have a grounding in mindfulness. And the reason why this is important is because so many of us are afflicted with so many thoughts, so many emotions, so many feelings, so many worries. We're always carried away by this stuff in everyday life. So the mindfulness is a skill whereby we can step back from this onrushing river of thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Okay? So that's really important, and we do that by working with the mindfulness support, like breathing or sound. So we put our attention elsewhere, and then we realize we don't have to identify with all this stuff. We don't have to jump in the river. We can actually just let it flow by, and we can begin to choose what we focus our energy on. That's a big thing. And that's the skill, the magic of mindfulness. That's stage one. Stage two is once we become aware of all the thoughts, feelings, emotions, dramas going through our minds, it's important to come into a non-fighting relationship with them, to actually accept and allow all the mental processes to follow their course. That's very important. Otherwise, we can start thinking, oh my God, all this craziness in my mind, I want to get rid of it, sanitize it, do something with it. That isn't the way, that doesn't work. Okay? So once we've cultivated the mindfulness, the next step is how can I make friends and allow this flow of experience? And what we notice is the more we accept, the more it just flows through and changes. That's stage two. Stage three is self-compassion. How can we bring a basic kindness to the person in here who struggles, who is me? And each of us struggle in all kinds of ways in life, just getting through the day. Just managing our own internal world is quite a lot in itself. So the self-compassion is how can I support and bring kindness to this person in here who struggles. Okay? And as you can see, I'm using this gesture of hand or heart, which is a symbolic way of giving ourselves support in our lives as we go about our day. And what the self-compassion leads into is this key idea of holder and held that Tara Brach coined. And I think this idea of holder and held goes to the heart of compassion training. Because in the compassion, we first identify what needs to be held. There are many parts of us that need a lot of holding and support and care. Anxious feelings, sad feelings, critical feelings. Okay? But we also identify a part of us that can hold it. Okay? There's a part of us that can actually do the holding and the supporting and the befriending. Like an inner friend we discover within our own being. Okay? And this inner friend we discover, in a way, there's a kind of wisdom in that part of us, and there's a wholeness, and there's a compassion in this part that Paul Gilbert called the compassion itself. So we learn to more and more step into the compassion itself, the wise part, the grounded part, the caring part. Okay, so during the retreat, we'll focus quite a lot of our attention on learning to inhabit this part of us that can then take care of the other parts that show up all the time, anxious, sad, critical, worried, almost like an inner parent or inner friend that takes care of these other parts of ourselves. And I think this really goes to the heart of the compassion training, finding this compassionate self within, the inner friend within. So you can imagine what it would be like to go about your life and there's a friend walking with you step by step, and that friend's in you, okay? It's a part of you you've learned to identify and cultivate that actually supports you as you go about your day. Okay? What would that be like, to cultivate that in you, as opposed to just giving myself a hard time, criticizing myself? So we will, on the retreat that I'll be leading, we'll already be looking at this compassion itself. Cultivating that for ourselves in terms of our inner environment, but also cultivating that in terms of the external environment we're in. How can we inhabit this grounded, wise, mature part as we engage with family, friends, workplace? Okay? So we can always sort of take refuge in that part. That part becomes our friend, our kind of inner guide in life. So I think that's going to be the heart of our retreat, finding that place. And it'll be based on the foundation of first the mindfulness, then the acceptance, and the self-compassion, going into the cultivating the inner compassion itself. So I invite you to join me and the rest of us on this journey, and hope to see you then.